The Arts That Shape Us is a podcast by Vermont Folklife, produced with support from Vermont Public's Made Here Fund. It's devoted to exploring the state's cultural heritage and what different local art forms say about the past and present of Vermont. Vermont Folklife's Director of Education and Media, Mary Wesley, hosts the show. In this second installment, we meet a Tibetan musician and dancer who has infused his cultural heritage into Vermont's.
Tashi dile, tashi dile, tashi dile, tashi dile.
Welcome to The Arts That Shape Us, an audio series about traditional arts and the ways they shape culture and communities. I'm Mary Wesley. We've created this series in collaboration with Vermont traditional artists. Vermont Folklife is a statewide cultural research and education nonprofit. For the past 40 years, we've engaged with communities across the state to document and share everyday expressions of culture, tradition, and innovation. Each episode in this series introduces an art form and explores its relationship to the communities and places where it's rooted. You'll meet people who are teaching and sustaining these arts, learn what these practices mean to them, and look at the ways that tradition is actually a dynamic process happening in the present while also maintaining ties to the past. In this episode, we'll meet Tibetan-American musician, dancer, teacher, and community leader, Migmar Tsering. I've known Migmar for over a decade. When we first met, I was working as an intern with Vermont Folklife, and I was supporting an initiative called the New Neighbors Project. This was an effort to make recordings of musicians with immigrant or refugee backgrounds who had recently resettled in Vermont. Migmar had arrived in 2011, and I was helping to coordinate some of the recording sessions for the sound recordist who was a partner on the project.
This is Mark Greenberg for the Vermont Folklife Center on October 1st, 2013 in South Burlington, Vermont with Migmar. Why don't you say your whole name and then explain a little bit? That's great.
Yeah, sure. Migmar Tsering. The instrument that I'm going to play now is Tibetan drumyan. And this instrument, if you get to go to any family, any Tibetan family's house, you'll see this instrument in their house. So it's that common in Tibetan.
We recorded about 10 songs with Migmar, and it was clear that he was a prolific musician. That same year, 2013, Migmar applied to the Vermont Folklife Traditional Arts Apprenticeship Program to teach drumyan to kids in Vermont's Tibetan-American community. This was something he had already been doing, and it was a perfect fit for the program. For as long as he can remember, Migmar has felt a connection with music and dance.
So one thing that I never forget in my life is when I was a little kid, the elders in my community, in my village, they loved me. They throw me from one arm to the other, they play with me, and they really sort of made me feel that I was special. And the only reason was I could dance with them. During every circle dance that we do in the evenings, I used to be there in the circle, and then I used to dance just like those people.
The village in Tibet where Migmar danced the circle dance is called Langkor in the county of Tingri. He was born there almost 3 decades after the invasion of Tibet by communist China in 1950.
So back in those years, there was no light, no electricity, which means they don't have radio or TV, or they don't have anything. During the daytime, they start their day very early. And then throughout, it's hard work. It's very hard work. but they joyfully ended. After coming back, this is the social gathering that they have. One person will start the dranyan. That's like the bell, ringing the bell. Hey, it's about time. I'm ready. Anybody else who want to join me? That's the call. And then then another dranyan player will come, and then they will tune their dranyans. And then slowly people will come. And first they will start with a song, and then make sure everything is tuned, and then they will start dancing. So it's an everyday thing.
At age 8, Migmar left Langkor. His father took him across the border through Nepal to attend school in Dharamsala, India. As it still is today, the city was the seat of the Tibetan government in exile, and a region where many Tibetans relocated or found refuge from ongoing conflict in their homeland. While his parents and siblings remained in Langkor, Migmar completed primary and secondary school in the Tibetan Children's Village in MacLeod Ganj, a neighborhood of Dharamsala known as Little Lhasa. He brought his love of music with him.
I was the favorite of my music teacher. I sometimes, get really surprised how the other kids are not getting it. So in a way, it's in me, and when it comes out, it reflects a huge part of me, and that always made me feel special. And then I started teaching myself how to play the traditional Tibetan instrument called dranyan.
At school, Migmar didn't have his own dranyan, but when he was able to go home to Langkor on a school break,
I realized that I can have a dranyan because there was a dranyan in my house. And my little brother, who was very little that time, he was my first teacher. Yeah. If I try to visualize, the dranyan was even taller than him. Yeah, so somehow we managed to, learn one or two songs. And then after that, I just carried on. And then after becoming a teacher also, even though I was a science teacher, I never gave up teaching dance or music.
Since the 1950s, the Tibetan diaspora has expanded, with multiple groups of Tibetans relocating to India, and later the US, Canada, Australia, and some European countries. Under the United States 1990 Immigration Act, 1,000 Tibetans living in exile in India, Nepal, and Bhutan were chosen via lottery to receive US visas. In 1993, Vermont became one of 25 resettlement sites in the United States. Unlike other immigrants who arrived in Vermont as refugees, Tibetans were identified as displaced persons and received no financial support from the U.S. government. Instead, Vermonters had to create a private nonprofit, Burlington's Tibetan Resettlement Project, to support Tibetans in establishing a life in Vermont.
And actually, it's my wife's sister. Her name is Tenzin. She was among the 1,000 Tibetans who won the lottery to go to U.S. as an immigrant.
The first Tibetans arrived in Vermont in 1993, and more followed over the next decade, including Migmar.
It was in the month of January, I think, 2011, when I reached here to Vermont. And my wife had been, waiting for the family reunion for about 15 years. And it's through her that me and my two girls get to come here to Vermont.
Migmar immediately began thinking about how he could support the growing Tibetan community.
After leaving India, coming here, the first thing that I did besides trying to make a life for myself, we call that earning the bread. Yeah, the first thing I did is music. Like, how can I help?
Often when we think about human need, we think about material need. Securing food, housing, education, income, and health care, of course, loom large when someone moves to a new place. But at Vermont Folklife, we've learned over decades of work with traditional artists that other, less tangible things are important too. One of our priorities since Vermont became a refugee resettlement state in the early 90s has been to support and document cultural practices and lived experiences within communities from immigrant and refugee backgrounds. This process happens over years and depends on developing partnerships with artists and community leaders, listening to what's needed and finding ways that our organization can help. This can look like finding rehearsal space for the Bosnian Lilies, a kids' folk dance group active in the early 2000s, or finding cowhides for a Somali Bantu instrument maker so he can build instruments for his popular wedding band, or securing funding for Migmar to commission traditional dress and costumes for dance performances. We've seen time after time that when individuals and communities that are new to Vermont have opportunities and resources to continue the cultural practices that are important to them, it positively impacts the health and well-being of those communities, and by extension, the entire state. For Migmar, music and dance are inextricably linked to being Tibetan.
So we say, like Tibetans, when they learn how to walk, they all know how to dance. And in every work of life, there is a song for that. If you are harvesting, there is a song. If you are irrigating the fields, there is a song. If you are leveling the fields, there is another song. And then if a boy and a girl trying to have some love affairs and trying to pass the message to each other, there is another song called Zalu. It's endless. When I went back to Tibet in 1994, I was maybe a teenager. And I saw, like, they are celebrating. They are not working. It's like my neighbor is plowing the field right there on his field, my dad and my family here, and then others in their own field. And then there is a song coming from here, a song coming from there, a song coming from here, and then you hear the ringing bells of the yaks and the zos, and then the whistlings, and then the kids running here and there. There is so much joy. At the end of the day, it's hard to tell that, whether you went for a work or you went for a celebration. So that's that's being Tibetan.
As he found work and adjusted to life in Vermont, Migmar applied this sentiment.
When I worked for the Hilton Hotel, it's a very funny. So there was this chief engineer. So I think I was in the ballroom alone, and I was stacking chairs and throwing the tables here and there. At the same time, I was all the time singing. But if you see somebody else alone having to do that whole big ballroom by yourself, the expressions are different. So he really got surprised, and he offered me the job of an engineer. I think that's the only reason why. Like, I have a joy, and I don't see the difficulties in doing things in life. And I think it's a gift. it's a part of being Tibetan. And that's a beautiful shape you do not want to lose. Yeah.
Something I think I've come to understand, speaking with Migmar over the years, is that he has a clear picture for himself of what it means to be Tibetan. It's something he's carried with him since leaving Tibet. We've talked a lot about how his music students and the young people in his community understand what it means to be Tibetan-American in Vermont today, and what role he wants to play in shaping that understanding.
It's more responsibility. Yeah, more challenging. Normally we don't think much about it because we are surrounded by Tibetans and we never have to remind ourselves that we are Tibetans. But over here it's totally different. When you have your kids speaking to you in English, and then when they speak Tibetan, when it sounds like a non-Tibetan has learned how to speak Tibetan and he's trying hard or she is trying hard to speak to me, that's a threat. That makes me feel like we are on the cliff, at the edge. And then it wakes you up and gives you the feeling that, hey, you have more responsibilities. It doesn't discourage, but it really alarms you. Like, you need to do it, because being a human being, feeding yourself is not the only responsibility we have.
When I spoke with Migmar back in 2014, this responsibility was on his mind. True to his intention, he was enacting this responsibility through music. He was serving as president of the Tibetan Association of Vermont, which was formed in 1993 by the first group of Tibetans arriving in the state. When they held community celebrations for Losar, the Tibetan New Year, or the birthday of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he played his drangyen and brought people together to dance and sing. And he was thinking ahead about how he could do more, despite the challenges of a busy work schedule.
That's my pain in the sense, Sundays I always have work. Saturdays I always have work. So I have to figure out something. I'm thinking about Monday and Tuesday now, after school.
And is the goal to teach to young people or anybody
Who is interested. Mm-hmm. But my interest is to teach the young.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my interest. So I have a kind of a vision that if I can start, it's gonna be good. 1, 2, 3, 4.
He did start. That same year that we spoke was Migmar's first year taking part in the Vermont Folklife Apprenticeship Program. And he used some of the program funds to purchase 10 drangyens. He found rental space in Burlington and began holding classes for youth and adults in Vermont's Tibetan community. After a few years, he founded a formal school.
I started the Drayong Lobling by the grace of Vermont Folklife. Rayong meaning instrument and Lobling meaning the place where we learn. And it was actually 2016. I double checked. 2016 and November 1st.
When I started putting this story together, Migmar had been holding youth music and dance classes for nearly a decade, and I wanted to speak with some of his students to understand the impact of this work. I started close to home. Here's his younger daughter, Tenzin Chuki.
we have this really like tiny damye, and he like gave it to me, and he was like, we're gonna learn this. And then he never was like you have to learn this, or like we're going to learn this. It was more of like if you want to learn it, you can. And like I liked how he wasn't forcing me to do it. That made me like want to do it more. And then 4th and 5th grade, he like introduced it. He was like, I think I'm gonna start this music club for the youth, and like I want you to be a part of it. And it was kind of cool because I was one of the younger members in that, but I like knew more than them, so it was like I felt cool, like yeah.
Since Migmar played his parental cards just right, his daughter seems to be following in his footsteps. Chuki and her peers are now teenagers, some of them getting ready to go off to college. Migmar calls this group his first batch of students. And what's amazing is that they're now starting to take up the cause of keeping Tibetan culture alive in their own way. Another Roilang Lobling student, Tenzin Pasang, shares her thoughts.
Dancing isn't just like, oh, like, you're just doing it for fun. You're doing it because you're helping out the community, you're expanding your culture, and you're also like out there at some point showing that like you know how to dance. And like, I'm not in this community just because I'm Tibetan. I'm in this community because I'm here for a reason. And yeah, I feel like since they're getting old, I want to continue this group with the younger generation, so yeah.
On my latest visit with Migmar, I stopped by a class in Burlington's Old North End with the current students of Roilang Lobling, the second batch. They were getting ready to perform for the 20th annual Tibet Festival.
The Tibet Festival is about like our culture, showing like our dances and our food, especially the food.
The Tibet Festival, it's like really enjoyable because like there's a bunch of food and a bunch of different like people performing, including us and my mom sometimes, and a bunch of other parents. They perform like different times, so like there's the yak dance and the snow lion dance, and I feel like I want to do that when I'm older.
Migmar's students call him Gen Migmarla, a term of respect for a teacher in Tibetan. I also spoke with some of the parents who were at the class.
I try to emphasize my boys and let them know that how lucky we are to have Gen Migmarla in Vermont, because, you know, this is such a blessing. Because part of it is because with music, you know, it's one of the ways we are preserving the culture. So I try to stress them, it's not just Damye class, there's so much in depth to this.
The last two community gatherings that we've had were amazing because the kids' performances just get better and better every time. I know our last one, I had tears in my eyes because everybody was singing and getting along, and it was, I think the whole community in general are proud of what Gen Migmar has done with these kids. It's quite amazing to see the whole community gather around and sing while they play, and that's really special.
So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the young Lobling kids along with their training.
In November 2024, the students of Roilang Lobling and many others took to the stage at the Tibet Festival in Burlington.
Today I'm not playing training because I have handed it over to them. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Along with dance and music performances, the day-long event also featured a fashion show, remarks from community leaders, and about 4,000 homemade momos, Tibetan-style dumplings. Teenagers Tenzin Pasang and Tenzin Chuki performed a duet dance together, and Tenzin Pasang did a solo.
These Tibetan dances are no joke. They'll give you really good exercises. You have to move your body a lot, and I feel like really grateful that I actually learned dances and I like adapted to it, because without dance, what's life?
Yeah. It's also nice to know that you're making the older generation proud. I feel like a common concern between them is how they're going to be able to continue the culture and continue it without like a country to call home. So I think being able to help with that cause is really meaningful in like an indirect way, like just learning these and being like encouraged to and being happy to learn is like, I feel is very important.
So now we have kids playing, teenage Tibetan young Americans dancing, and now they are voluntarily coming up, doing their dances, or let's say being a Tibetan. And then I'm very, very proud at the moment that now, like, there are kids enjoying the party, teenage enjoying the party, the elders enjoying the party. Everybody is involved. And now the shape is back. Like as in Tibet, let's say. When we have the circle dance, the kids are there, the young, the old, everybody's there. And everybody has the eye and the ears on the dance or on the song. There is not much of a distraction. Now that is back. And that's the best gift I can have.
One of the most important aspects of the work we do and have done at Vermont Folklife over the past 40 years is to challenge assumptions about what it means to be a Vermonter and what the traditions of Vermont really are. Here's the thing. I'm never sure about using this label, Vermonter. I never know who it includes and who it might exclude. In one of our many interviews, I asked Migmar about this.
I'm curious, do you identify as a Vermonter, as someone who lives in Vermont, and how does that, I don't know if you do, that's a question, and then I'm just curious how that connects or doesn't to your identity as a Tibetan.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I absolutely 100% consider myself as a Vermonter. And I'm fortunate to land here because it's a place where you can enjoy all the 4 seasons. Winter is pretty tough, but it has its own beauty. So yeah, Vermonter, I absolutely feel I am. And my connection with the people here in Vermont is by being a Tibetan Vermonter. So I become special when I can become a Tibetan Vermonter. By saying that, it doesn't mean that Tibetan Vermonters are special. What I mean to say is, if I can share stories about Tibet, if I can share Tibetan culture, I can add another beauty. I can add to this diversity, and I can make Vermont a little more richer, culture-wise. So whoever I'm teaching now, they are all Vermonters too, and then there will be more Vermonters who will be practicing Tibetan cultural dances, who will be singing Tibetan songs, playing Tibetan instruments. And in a way, it's like in a community, we have different people with different thoughts, different ideologies, different cultures. But when we are living in a community, we should embrace the difference. At the same time, we should respect whatever differences the other person has. So I don't know how to say this, but I have the feeling like it's like a drop in the ocean, but we know that oceans are built by drops. So somebody might not feel the importance of that drop, but if you think about it, each single drop is the reason why we have the ocean. So yeah. I think that's how I'm connected.
Yeah. Beautiful.
The sound of the dranyen guiding a circle of dancers, the granite grave markers in Hope Cemetery, ash baskets and milkweed bags. These are just a few drops in the ocean of art forms that reflect and shape Vermont's cultural landscape. Vermont traditions practiced by Vermonters. Thanks for listening to The Arts That Shape Us. You can find more episodes along with other audio from Vermont Folklife on our podcast feed, Vermont Untapped, wherever you listen to podcasts. This series was produced by Vermont Folklife in collaboration with the artists it features. I want to extend deep gratitude to each of the artists who truly co-created this series with me. Thank you to Migmar, Tenzin Pasang and Tenzin Chuki, and the parents and students of Roilang Lobling for your input on this episode. All of these people not only let me record multiple interviews and welcomed me into their homes, studios, classrooms, and community gatherings, but they also made time to review drafts, give feedback, and talk with me about how they wanted this series to sound and feel. Here at Vermont Folklife, we're committed to trying to understand people's experiences from their own perspectives and on their own terms. This kind of collaboration takes a lot of time, and we couldn't do it without the goodwill, patience, and enthusiasm of our partners. The Arts That Shape Us features just a few out of many, many apprenticeships that Vermont Folklife has been privileged to support over the years. To learn more about our organization and the program, please visit www.vtfolklife.org. Lastly, I invite you to think about the arts that shape you and your community and find out ways to support local art and artists. Executive producers for The Arts That Shape Us are Kate Hoy and Andy Kolovos. The cello music heard in the intro is the traditional tune Green Mountain Petronella, recorded by Dave Hoy. This series also features the track West Bank, composed and recorded by Malcolm Parson. Find Malcolm's music at malcolmparson.com. The Vermont Traditional Arts Apprenticeship Program is supported by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Vermont Arts Council. You can find more episodes of The Arts That Shape Us, along with other audio from Vermont Folklife on our podcast feed, Vermont Untapped, wherever you listen to podcasts. The Arts That Shape Us was supported by Vermont Public's Made Here Fund.